seed into Flavortown. I just built this brand new Rails app. Let's take a look at what it built. Oh, that's not gonna work. Bloop. It's gonna open up everything in my entire computer. Bloop, bloop. Cool. So, you see here, it is a little bit bigger than Sinatra, to say the least. When I open app, I should see at least MVC. And here I get a lot more, right? But the important parts are my controllers, my models, and my views. Right? What else are we familiar with? A little DB action, probably the migrations, a little seed action. Let's see, what else we got here? In config, I have something called routes. This app became really, really big, and it's very hard to manage. But because of this beautiful file structure here, I know if I'm editing a certain show page, I can simply go, oh man, I know it's in my app, right? I know it's somewhere in my views, and I'm gonna find the folder, and I need to go to that folder show page, right? Because of this file structure, Rails is very easy to manage and be very, very apparent once you start adding more files. So let's go to Flavortown. Let's build something, right? Let's create this migration. But what do we want to, like, what model do we want here? Hot dogs, right? Wow, you know your Guy Fieri. Diners, dives, and drive-ins. No, let's build like a bunch of hot dogs. Cool. Don't like that? No? I can't stop, man. I did not eat breakfast this morning. I'm running on a LaCroix mango flavor. All right, so great. So what I could do is I can very easily go into my model folder, press A, and create this new like hot dog model. But this seems to be something that I will do every single time, right? Like I always have to build this controller, I always have to build this model. So Rails is very generous, and it has something called generators. Have you gotten to this lab yet? Let's read me. Okay, so Rails has something called generators, and what it will do, it is literally going to Rails generate, if I spell it right, a model for me. Here, I'm going to build a model called hot dog, and what are the attributes of hot dog? Huh? Likes? Length? Dangerous. Let's go size. Size. Yeah? And that is an integer. You guys are trying to get me in trouble. You're going for it. You're like, you know what? I've had enough. I know you for 3 days. New Mod 3 instructor. This is me taking a hammer to my face. The recording started. So, what other attributes of hot dog do we have here?
Ketchup. What do you mean? There's more flavors in ketchup. It's flavors. Is it 100% beef?
Sure. Beef is a Boolean. Absolutely. Kosher Boolean. Great. And what are we calling these things? Huh?
He just went ahead and said it.
I'm just gonna use
Diameter?
name, and I'm gonna leave name alone, right? Because of all of these different type of data structures, right? You have integer, Boolean. You probably have like a date time object, right? Like if you want to like keep track of something like that. And then there's the also very common, very powerful string. If I were to set a default parameter for an attribute, what would I want to set it to?
A string.
So if I do this, it'll work. If I also leave it alone, it'll default to string. Cool? So I'm going to run this generator, and I expect it to build me a model with these attributes.
Even if the attribute name is
Oh, you're right. Oh, embarrassing. Powerful. Thank you. I'm going to Rails generate this model. It's going to be called hot dog. Notice how I capitalized it. right? Capital H for hot dog. And then the model, is that plural or singular?
Singular.
Right. Just like user, user.all, trainer, trainer.first. The model is singular. So I run this, and it will build one thing for me, or, let's say it built a lot of things. Interesting. Again, these tests, right? Yes, sir?
Is there like a thing you can do with Rails kind of like Riggs that you see all the functionality of it?
Rails generate. Cool. So, remember, did I tell you class or a different class? Dash dash help, right? If there's like a Rails command, dash dash help would help. There's also something called manual. So if you were to like manual, so like, you know how I did like Rails new? Rails is now a command line command. So this Rails is a command, right? I can always ask the manual, like the user manual. Do you remember this? I was like born in the 80s. Anyways, right? For Rails, okay, just kidding. There's no manual entry for Rails. But there should be, like, there's like a git command. I can do man for git. And there's a manual, the git manual. Cool? So if dash dash help doesn't work for you, you can always ask the manual, right? Either way, let's take a look at all the Rails commands. I'm going to go over them in a little bit, but the one that I like is this generator. Cool? So it builds this for me. If we go back, it built this. What's that? Whoa, powerful, right? And the model. So let's take a look at the model first, right? That's what I thought it was going to build for me. Bam, hot dog. Whoa. And it's inheriting from something called application record. Just a little bit more robust, a little bit more powerful than active record. And it will inherit from active record and add additional functionality. Cool? Still has all the same active record stuff you know, but now more. What else did it build? What did I zoom in on obnoxiously? Oh, look, this migration folder. Bloop. Oh, man, wonder what's in here.
Table. Whoa, baby.
Man, do you remember when you were doing .map and .select, and then you got introduced to active record? Well, welcome to Rails. So, it created this table, pluralized it for me, and then already added all my attributes. Then it does something called t.timestamps, and we'll see what that does. Long story short, it does this created at and updated at for my database. And this is, timestamps, so it adds a created at and updated at attribute to every single record in my database. And that's useful because let's just say you're building an app, right? And you want to send a 20% off coupon to your users that have been with you for at least 1 year. You can do user.all. You can sort through each one. If the created at, right, is over 1 year from datetime.now. Wouldn't that be powerful? And then you can send them an email. And then you just get that list of only the people that have been with you for more than a year. And so remember, the data is for your use, and there are creative things you can do with them. So, wouldn't it be nice if Rails allowed you to send emails? Wow, powerful, powerful, right? But we won't get into that today. Cool? Just know that if you wanted to do a blog post, right, might be good. So, I got this migration, right? What do I need to do now? Do I see a schema here? No. So I probably, do I have all my rake tasks?
Whoa.
Rails. Monster, right? Do I have a schema? What would I need in order to get the schema, in order to actually map out the ORM to my model? Yes, I need to migrate. Gone are the days of rake. Old. Let's do a little bit of Rails DB migrate. Powerful. The difference? Nothing. So in Rails 5, Rails is like obsessed with Rails. As you can see, as I walk around chanting Rails nonsensically around campus. I basically took all the rake commands and we're like, hey, here's an alias. You can run Rails DB migrate, Rails DB create, Rails DB drop, right? So if you start to see me see Rails with everything, it's because we're a cult. Cool? Great. Not really, but. Well, Rails is very 2018, you know? Shotgun can trigger some people. All right, so. Thank you. It was the correct usage of the pun. So, I created this migration, right? Now I have a schema. And is this exactly what I want? See how this created, updated that? That's where t.timestamps come from. So, how can I test? Should I do this like rake console? No. God, and I have to build it in the rake file? Trash. Rails console. But Rails knows how lazy I am, and it built this alias for me. Now I'm in the console. Cool? So do I have hot dog? God, I love teaching. I have hot dog. Hotdog.all should be a. Let's make a hot dog. Cool. Yes, sir.
Why is it telling you to call the hot dog?
This is very interesting. This is a thing that, like active record. Because I haven't actually made anything yet, right? When we do the ORM, we do the schema, it is attempting to wire it up to the model, but because I've never created anything, I've never touched the database ever for the first time, it will ask me to do a connection. If I run any of the database touching commands, it will build a connection automatically for me, all right? As opposed to return something like hot dog is an uninitialized constant. So it recognizes that it is there, right? And it's going to be wired up, and I can run connection to actually hook it up. But it hasn't been done yet. Cool? So when I run something like create, right, it'll actually wire it up for me. Cool? It's all done for you under the hood. I just ran this new so I can see all the attributes here, so it's very easy for me. Let's see, what do I got here? A little size action, and size is a integer. Great. Oh God, it's tricky. Foot long is 12, right? That's just a fact. So beef, is this one, are we like?
That's 12 inches of beef. Yes.
I'm looking across like if I'm like offending anyone. Sure, true, right? God. All right. Don't worry about it. You're an angel. All right. What is the name for this thing?
Kobe.
Kobe. Do I need to put anything for created that, updated that? Why? Because active record will handle that for me. In the same way that I never pass in the ID, right? So, if I do hotdog.first, I will have access to this 12-inch beef kosher Kobe hot dog, which is very deceiving, right? Like, Kobe beef is very expensive. Either this hot dog is like extremely high quality, or Mr. Bryant like ate this thing, was like, name this after me. Yes, sir.
Is it configured to use SQLite, or is it
This is automatically configured to use SQLite. If I were to run Rails new, and then I give it a flag to change the database to like Postgres or something, then it would use Postgres. Otherwise, it will default to SQLite, which is why we had you on SQLite Mod 1 and then SQLite for Sinatra, because it's just stepping stones. Yes, sir.
Why does it use pry?
Because pry doesn't have as much functionality as the debugger that is available in Rails, and we'll take a look at that. Cool?
If you had done create but not like size be true and just done like 12 true Kobe, would it fill it in automatically?
You mean hotdog.create, and you just want me to put 6 true, and the name is called true because I'm like unoriginal. What would happen?
Is it going to error or not? Does it correct?
What does this argument error mean? This is a very common error, and thank you for bringing it up. And I will explain because it can be very difficult to decipher. And that is this. The wrong number of arguments given for expecting 0 to 1. What do you mean 0? Let's try it. Wow, it made it. So if I were to do hot dog dot last, I will see a hot dog with absolutely no attributes. Interesting. Is that something you want in your database?
No.
Right? We'll work on validations next week and how we can kind of prevent this. So it will in fact work with 0 arguments. But why is it expecting, well, we know now 0 works, right? Why it thinks that 0 is okay. But what does it mean by expecting 1 argument when I'm very clearly throwing in beef, size, kosher, and name? Well, what's happening is this, right? Right? If I do not specify, Rails will give me the syntactic sugar. Well, active record will give me the syntactic sugar. It's taking in a hash. If you learn from mod 1, I can have a name as a key pointing to something. All right, I can tell you're all like looking hard. How's that? Right? It's taking in 1 hash, right? And this hash has multiple key value pairs. So is this kosher? And this one is false. So now I have 1 hash, 1 object going into this create method as 1 argument. And it's taking the key values from this 1 hash argument inside this create. Did that clarify why it's saying that when I did this, these are 1, 2, 3, 4 separate arguments, but it will assume that if I drop in key value pairs, right, and this is like kosher, and this is like beef, that it will assume that it's a hash, because it's pointing to these key value pairs. Cool? Awesome. Thank you for that question. So now I've tested this Rails, right? Looks pretty similar. Nothing like crazy off except for the power of the Rails generators. Now, normally, after I build the model, I have the option of building the V or the C, right? And as we discussed last time, can't really build the views without the controller. So I probably need to create this controller. I probably need to generate a controller, because Rails can do that for me. But like a G, like a boss, it's lazy. Rails G, controller. And it's going to be a controller for hot dogs or hot dog? Controllers are plural. Cool? It's just something you kind of have to like remember if your Rails app is not wired up correctly, because Active Record and Rails will look for specific file names. We'll help you, but controls are plural, mouse is singular. Yeah? Do I need to add like arguments for this? Kind of weird to put arguments for like a controller, right? So let's run it. Bloop. Wow, powerful. It already knows that inside my app views, which I do not need to hard code into Rails like I did with Sinatra, it's probably going to be a folder called hot dogs, right? Again, this test, some helper files, which are very nice, and then it adds some like CSS or a Sass file, right? Which is like, it was like super CSS. I forget what SCSS stands for, but and like a CoffeeScript file, which we won't really get into. Cool. My hot dogs controller, not as like mind-blowingly powerful, but still there. Cool. And it's built for me. And it builds inside my views an empty view folder. Because, I mean, it doesn't even know what I want yet, right? I don't always and exclusively have to build CRUD. Like some of you have mentioned, there's no update for like, or edit for Twitter. So why would I always build all 7? So in that case, let's do this. Do you remember in Sinatra, there was some sort of like index action? And then we did like a get to / hot dogs, hot gods. Cool, right? And what do we call this action again? What do we call this RESTful route? Right. So wouldn't it be nice, inside this, I just made a method called index. Cool? And in this method, just like in Sinatra, I need to talk to the Modelo, and I need to send a response. Right? There's literally no difference between this and this. Boop, 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 boop. Right? So, how does it know that this index is actually get to hot dogs? Magic? Awesome, right? Let's think about it, right? What does this look like to you? It looks like a route. Do I have a routes file? I do have a routes file. And check it out. This app gets really big really fast. Do I want to be scrolling over and looking for this file every single time on the left? Probably not. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just search for the file if I knew the file name? If I hit Command T, it will index my entire project, and then I will say routes, powerful. And there it is. Powerful. This is one of the best search algorithms I've ever seen inside like a IDE. So check it out. If I know that I have like a hot dog controller, right? Notice the file tree, app, controller, hot dogs controller. I can simply do app, controller, hot dog controller, and it'll find it. But if I really know the file structure, app, controller, hot dog controller. Because it found app and JavaScript came up first. App assets JavaScript. Cool? So if I just know where to look, I don't even have to type the whole thing. I just kind of like control through. Cool? Awesome. So in my routes, I know I have to tell the user when they do this get to /hot dogs, which is going to be my index, where do I want Rails to look to serve up this response? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. I just built this method index in my hot dogs controller. So I'm going to tell it when you get a get to /hot dogs, go to the hot dogs controller, look for a method called index. Okay, it's too helpful. And now, when somebody opens up my Rails server, does a get to hot dogs, it's going to go, go to the hot dogs controller, method called index. In there, what do I need in here? Right? Pretty similar, look the same, but I want to make sure I pass it into my view, and I can send a response. Instead of ERBing, I keep saying this other word, I want to render. I want to render index. Where do you think Rails will look for this index file? In the views? Under layouts or under hot dogs? Yeah, definitely not, right? Index.erb. Cool. And here, I'm just going to put take me to Flavortown. Happy birthday! Cool. Say again? Very good question. I simply rendered index, right? The hot dogs controller in Rails, in all its auto magic, will recognize that there's a hot dogs view. And it knows this, especially because if you remember, in my command, when I did Rails G hot dog, it built the controller and it built the views hot dogs. So my controller will look for a folder in views of the exact same name automatically. Cool? And then, do I have to do like hot dogs here? No, because it already knows. But if I had a subfolder of hot dogs, right, just called sub, then I would have to do like sub It will only look in that folder directly. Then I can tell it where to go from there. Cool? So, you wrote a lot of code. You should probably spin up the server and test it, right? How do I spin up this Rails server? How do I start the Rails server? Right? Huh? Yeah, I just put take me to Flavortown, right? So Rails server, again, in all my laziness, I can just put Rails S, which I will do always and forever after this. Cool? And what port does this start on? Cool. So how do I get there? A little bit of this, a little bit of localhost. Oh, just kidding, don't see that. Localhost 3000. Yay, you're on Rails! Powerful, powerful. How do I get to, how do I do, in the hot dogs index, hit this index method? What route will I want to go to? Powerful. Take me to Flavortown. Amazing. Are there any questions as to how the Rails will do routing as it's different from Sinatra? Cool. Let's do some custom routing just to fully understand what's happening here. If instead of get to hot dogs, I did something called get to, I don't know, Wangtron, right? And this is going to point to hot dogs index. How would I get there? Right, Wangtron. This will still take me to the correct controller doing the correct action, right? If I did something like hot dogs with a, I don't know, different method name, Supreme, what will happen when I do a get to /Wangtron? This is what's going to happen. Remember, Rails will hit this route. It will find the route. It will point it to a hot dogs controller. In hot dogs, do I have a method called Supreme? So, action Supreme could not be found inside hot dog controller. How explicit is that? It literally says you don't have a method called Supreme in your hot dogs controller. Powerful. Do you remember how I changed this? Do I have a get to /hot dogs right now? No, it's gone. I deleted it. I changed it to Wangtron. So if I were to go to hot dogs, what would happen? It'll tell me no route matches get to hot dogs. Of course, because that route does not exist. So can I just build it? Get to /hot dogs. Great. What will Rails do with just this line of code? No controller action. It will tell me, great, get to hot dogs. I have no idea what to do now. So, missing your controller key in your routes definition. There's no controller to point to. Wow, like Rails will just build my app for me, please. 2, what controller should I code to? Hot dogs, right? Am I telling Rails a particular method to hit? Wow. What if I do this random one? There's no action. Can I also point this to index? And then I will finally get to Flavortown. Yeah? Custom routing. Is that cool? If I were to go to get to /hot dogs, and I were to go, let me go to the burgers controller with a method called yum. What will it tell me? The first thing it's going to do is, does a route match to get to /hot dogs? Yes. It's going to tell me, go to the burgers controller and look for a method called yum. Does burgers controller exist? Uninitialized constant burger. Powerful error messages. I'm being obnoxious here because the error messages are so good. Read the error messages. You have no idea how many times in the last 5 times I've taught Mod 5 where they're like, what does this mean? And I was like, what's the error? And they're like, oh, don't worry about that. This doesn't work. Okay? Please don't do that, right? If you do, I will still help you. It's a learning thing. But the error messages are so good. This is a newfound era in computer science and development called error-driven development, right? The errors will lead you to where you need to go. So naturally, in this burgers controller, I can literally do Rails G controller, burgers, and then it will build the burger controller for me. So powerful, so fast, so magic. Refresh. Now yum doesn't exist, right? Because my burgers controller is there. So I must do something called yum, so end action, and all I'm gonna do is tell it, cool, man. Cool. Does it not know what that is?
I like this error.
Right? It doesn't know what it is. It says missing template for this request. What template for this request do you think it's missing? There's no HTML. Sinatra understood this ditty. Do you remember? You could just like hard code some string in here and it'd be like, great, sure, whatever. Rails does not like that. So it says no template. Where would I build this template? Would I build this template in the hot dogs? Or would I build it in the burgers controller? Very good, yes. If I wanted to call this something like, that's what I do. Cool. Now I can just drop a p tag and just be like, Burger Town.
Well, it's great if the error even told you that if you wanted a blank page, this is what, you'll get a blank page.
Yeah.
And you can go on, but if you don't, then
It's crazy.
something there.
Crazy good error messages. What will happen now? Let's follow the routes. Ready? Let's follow it start to finish in my routes. Get to /hot dogs takes me to burgers yum. So I'm in a get to /hot dogs here. I must be going to burgers yum. In my burgers controller, I have a method called yum. Do I need anything from the model? No, because it's just some ridiculous custom method, right? If your method needed something from the model, you would do your model logic right here. Then, what is the response? I want to render, what? What did I just build? In burgers, something called something like. I would do something like. Cool. If I refresh, Burger Town. Cool. So, if I were to do this, what will Rails do for me? This is the only time Rails will do some confusing auto magic. Rails, right, will do some implicit magic here. Rails will see burgers controller with a action, so controller action. Action is just method, right? For yum, and it will automatically, behind the scenes, do something called render yum. Unless you tell it otherwise. Because the method is called yum, must render yum. So if I refresh, it will say, burger yum is missing a template for this request. But even with nothing here, under burgers yum.erb, it's like I can put a p tag and put Rails magic.
If you put nothing there, would it throw that error that would you said that? What I think it was Matt. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can get to that. Literally nothing in this method. Still, Rails magic. Because it is automatically rendering the name of the method. Is anyone confused as to how Rails is assuming what will be here if you do not tell it what to render? Great. Great. Burgers controller, we'll just leave yum for fun. Right? And then I'm just going to put auto magic render yum. Just for your comments, yeah? Back to the actual task at hand, and that is this hot dog controller, right? Do I need this render index?
Sure, no.
Powerful, right? How do I hit this index again? It's not even there. No, Wangtron will point to supreme. I can change this. Actually, no, let's just make another one for fun. Actually, this example is a little bit too contrived, right? Can I just go right back to hot dogs controller and hit the index? Is that cool with everyone? Great. So get to /hotdogs. We'll go to the hot dogs controller, action or method called index. Boom. Get me all the hot dogs and render index. Rails magic. This is the only part that is Rails magic. If anyone tells me, like, oh yeah, if I have this custom method, like def custom method, it'll just render index. I'm like, where are you getting this, right? I just happen to always wind up building index first, so that might be the confusion, but that's what Rails will be doing for you. Is that cool? Is that clarification good? Awesome. So I'm just going to put this here and just be extra explicit. Yeah. It is best practice to leave the render, even if it is going to render the method, the same method name, because you want to do it on purpose. Cool? So in my index, right, this looks pretty familiar. I can probably just do, what do I have access to again in my hot dog controller? I have hotdogs.each, do, little hot dog action, cuz, looking like a Ruby, you know what I'm saying? Do I want this to show or no show? Okay, that didn't work. Bloop, bloop, oh great. Should have done it once. Bloop. Cool. With that action, and then I can do what? Add. I'm just kidding. HD for the hot dog. But what is HD again? It's an object. So I need the. Over this. I'm just gonna add a line break for fun. Bloop. Notice how this actually skipped this line. Why? I have that hot dog ID2 with everything nil. So it will actually go through object 2. It will run .name on it, and then it'll go, oh, name is nil. Guess what I'm rendering? Nil dog. I'm gonna do it. And then if you really wanted to go hard in the paint, then you can do something like if hd.name, yeah, like does not equal nil. Go ahead and render, all right? But that's like crummy logic. You don't want to do that. Because you should not have nil values inside your database, right? So we're gonna add some validations next week. Any questions on kind of how Rails will handle routes, controller actions, and that difference and that jump from Sinatra? Okay. Let's do the next one, right? What's the other very popular, very cool RESTful action? What happens in show? What do I need from the model? Right? At hotdog equals to hotdog.find with the cool. But where are the params coming from here? I don't actually have the get to hotdog with the ID. I don't have this. I don't have this route. Where would I want to build this route? So I can simply go bloop, 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 bloop. Bam. Cool. Powerful. And what controller action do I want that pointing to? The hot dogs controller has a method called show, right? I literally just built it. All right, so do I need a render show here? I don't, but I will. Just to show you. So show.erb inside hot dogs, show. I can do h1 hot dog show. Woo! Right? Hot dog dot name. I can do something like name, right? Is it like kosher? And then I can do at hot dog dot kosher. It's like active record stuff. Is this okay to leave? What does this look like? Okay. Oh, I don't have my it's not my home setup. Anyways, this looking like a Ruby. Cool. So how do I get to this hot dog show page? How do I get to this hot dog show page? What would I possibly think about going, right? So the name and the stuff in the tag?
Yeah, in your show, or like name and culture, does that have to be in the tag?
This is Ruby.
No, it's lots of it.
Oh, this, I just want this to render, right? I'm so lazy. I should be doing this. This is what I should be doing. And we'll get to this later, right? I'll build the label tag, and this is going to be name.
So if you just type this into HTML, still read it as.
Yeah, and I'm going to go into that. Actually, I'll just go into it now.
Why
Cool.
is that labeled? Because I thought the label would be for
Cool. Ready? So here we have label, and then, actually, I'll show you the difference now, and we'll add a line break. Cool, right? Just throw a little semicolon action. Cool. So let me show you. All right. I'll dock it on the bottom. Here I have a label, and here I just have this text. So let's see what actually renders on the page. It's a label for name pointing to Kobe, and then a line break. Exactly this command, all right? Here's the weird thing. Kosher true, just that this is one long string. Even though it looks exactly the same on the website, it's not wrapped in these HTML elements, right? So this is really important as part of like your journey as a web developer. There's something known as like 508 compliance. And what that is if you are working, especially on a government website, or you're working on a very robust production level application, you're going to want to make sure everything's wrapped and appropriately labeled in HTML because of accessibility. If you have somebody who is blind or hard of hearing, then you can have a website literally read for you by the HTML so you can visualize in your mind what is actually displaying on the page. Here, it'll say, hey, there's a header. This page is, the header tag is showing some hot dog, woo, right? And then there's a label for a name. And that name for that is going to be Kobe. And then it's just going to say, like, string. There's a string that follows. It's not actually going to be able to give an accurate description of what this is. Then it's going to go, and that's the whole website. End of body. That's not great. Right, in terms of like thinking a little bit more abstractly. I was doing that, one, to just get to the meat of the lecture for Sinatra, but now introducing you to these like bigger picture things as part of web development, even though visually they look the same. Cool? Any questions on that? And why we need to start using like label and stuff like that. Awesome. So, great. So this label is for a hot dog name. That way, when it's read in the accessibility, it will actually read it. And it'll explain to the person that is using the accessibility tools what's going on your page. So, hot dog controller, show is done, but I should, in fact, be doing this, even though that show totally rendered without it. Thanks. All right, so here we can imagine I have some sort of def, right? And then I have some sort of def, and then I have some sort of I can call it whatever I want. You don't want to be aggressive and be like, hey, you want to delete that, or do you want to destroy it, right? Sorry, man, I lost shotgun. I gotta like vent it out now. But yeah, right? And then you can imagine, how would I hit these routes? Probably do something like, I don't know, this is gonna go to new. Sorry, someone was eating Reese's the other day. I was thinking about cereal. That's very second. What else do we have here? What are the other RESTful routes? And how do I get to edit? Need the ID, edit, and that should point to what route? Cool. And then? I need the update action, right? And that's going to be a 2. Do you see how these are mapping to the correct controller actions inside my routes? Ready? Good old Sinatra. Do you see how useful Sinatra was in this stepping stone? This would be like kind of like weird to explain the first time through. And then lastly, no, it's going to be delete, right? Yeet. Cool. And then lastly, it is going to be, cool. Let me show you something real quick, and then I will make you upset. So, in my hot dogs controller, I have this new here, right? Yeah?
The route for the update, does it go to update, or do you just go back to like hot dogs, the all hot dog match?
Say again?
Like when you do the patch RESTful route, take the ID and then what do you render? You're rendering a separate update page, or just like all, or just the index again? Like there you're saying to use the
I can redirect somewhere, right? Just like we did last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just redirect to like index or show. It's up to you.
Oh, just through the update method, so you don't.
Yeah. So check this out. Ready? This get to new, right? It needs what from the model? Probably nothing right now because it's just the new form, right? So just new form. No need for model. What am I going to render? What am I going to respond with? Render new. Right? And so now hot dog. Right? I'm probably going to build some sort of form here, right? But Rails has helpers for you, and they will build forms, and I'll explain that in tomorrow's lecture. But what I want you to get into the mindset of is there's some sort of submit. And this submit is going to go where? Going where? Going where? Right? It can go to hot dogs. Sorry, slash hot dogs, right? If I want this form to not hit create, but I want it to hit something else, not create, right? Create stinks. I want it to hit something called make me a hot dog. How would I have this form go to make me a hot dog? Well, there's two ways to do it, right? I can go new. I have a post to slash hot dogs. Post slash hot dogs is going to do hot dog. I could do that. Or I can go something else. This is a post to something else. And that is going to go to you see how the two ways I can do it, right? I can simply change where the form submits to, make my custom route. Or I can have something that already exists and then point it to a different method in my controller. The routes control the entire flow of your application. Wherever your routes tell it to go is wherever it's going to go. So here, just the RESTful route is post to slash hot dogs. Post to slash hot dogs is going to hit hot dogs controller create. Hot dog controller. Is there a create action here? Oh, yep, right here. Boom. Then logic. And that logic is probably going to be, what do I need in this create? Probably going to like make a new hot dog here, right? With the form stuff, like I did in Sinatra, right? So like at hot dog equals to with the that are coming through on the form, something like that. And then what should this do? Should this render? Should this post to create render anything? It should in fact redirect. So the difference is in Sinatra it was redirect. In Rails it's redirect to. Then I can hard code a route. Like let's say I want it to go to index. How can I make it go to index? What route would I give it for index? Cool. So, this is kind of clunky. Can I give this a nickname and say, get to slash hot dogs is going to point to hot dogs controller with the action of index as like a sort of nickname, and it's just going to be the hot dog index. If this is the variable I'm going to assign it, I can simply do hot dog index. But Rails will add something to it. Okay. So if I call it hot dog index, I'm going to call it the hot dog index path. Cool? This is like the helper method that refers to this right here. So hot dog index, redirect to the hot dogs index path. We'll see that it's a get to hot dogs. And this redirect will in fact hit my hot dogs controller, going into my index method. It will get me all the hot dogs and then finally render index. As promised, I know people like getting upset. So let's take a look at localhost 3000 Rails info routes. Is my server not up? Oh. I'm sorry, this is a string. Look. So here we have the hot dog index path, right? Slash hot dogs index. Hot dogs new, hot dogs new. Rails will recognize index, show, new, create, edit, update, and delete. It will automatically recognize these because they're so common. It will build the custom helper methods, right? You see how this is like a post to something else? Something else path is pre-built for me. Right? So post to something else. It will automatically give me as something else. And then it will add path to it for me. If I wanted to nickname it, right? Nickname. I will see that it is now the nickname path. So Rails will set some auto magic for you. Cool? If I wanted to redirect, I can use these helpers. The last thing I want to show you is if you're having trouble with the RESTful routes, there's something called restular. And if I had something called hot dogs, get to hot dogs. Get to hot dogs new. Slash hot dogs. Creating. This is what they do. And if you wanted to see the Sinatra version, you click it and it will give it to you. Powerful. Also kind of worthless, right? This is just used as a learning tool to understand the RESTful routes. The RESTful routes are so common that if I were to build Burger, these are the RESTful routes. The last thing I will show you is I have all of these. I built them. Don't want them anymore. I refresh my routes and they're gone. Wouldn't it be nice if I can get all 7 routes? Rails, 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 rails. And exactly on time, it's 12 o'clock. If there are no questions, go to lunch.